Alright, it has been a very long time since I've posted a video. So I'm sorry for going away for many months at a time, sometimes as close to a year, without posting a video or any updates. Um, but there has been a lot that has gone on over the last year, especially the last 2 years. And this is not the video for that. We are going to visit Hinoura's knife factory. And Hinoura, if you guys don't know them, are made of a team of two, father and son, Tsukasa-san and Mutsuki-san. Both amazing knife makers. I do have an e-store, burrfectionstore.com, and we do carry Hinoura's knives. So if you want to see them, just read up about them, go to burrfectionstore.com, look at brands or bladesmiths, and look up Hinoura. I'll also post a link in the video description to the actual site landing page for Hinoura's knives, and you can see them there. Now, I did post a video back in 2019, I think, when I went to visit Japan for the second time, and I went to their shop. But what I've noticed is that video was super short. It was something like 10 or 12 minutes, and it covered like 5 days of travel. That's terrible. I'm trying something different. I want you guys to give me some feedback. I want you to let me know if this format is something that you want to see more of, where I show you essentially everything. Everything from what I see, but even more importantly, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but I want you to hear what I hear. When I'm there, most of the time, or whenever I travel, I have a translator with me. But what happens oftentimes is my translator will get into a long conversation and they go off in tangents and all sorts of discussions, and then 5 or 10 minutes go by, they'll look at me, or he'll look at me and say, well, he said this. Give me like a one sentence summary of what was just said over the last 5 or 10 minutes. And so you're gonna hear some of that today. I find it funny. I find it hilarious when that happens because they look at me like I understand because I look like I'm Japanese. This is when I first checked into my Tokyo hotel. And it's the very first night I'm in hotel in Tokyo, and I get there at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I'm dead tired. It's about 100 square foot or 160 square foot. No, yeah, it's probably 100 square foot plus a bathroom. Quite small. Alright, so this is my first morning. I woke up next morning. This is early in the morning. It's like 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I'm out of my hotel room, and I'm heading to Tsubame. This is my bullet train. This is what I'll be hopping on to go to Tsubame. These trains are insanely long. I think there's like 16, or I think some of them may even have like 20 compartments. Alright, so this is the interior of the bullet train, the first class section, and the seats. If you have never been into a bullet train, they're pretty cool, and definitely way cleaner than practically any airline I've been on. You definitely have to lay your seats back and put your footrest forward because that's what everybody does on these trains.
終点新潟8時56分に次号車12両つないでの運転です。自由席は後より1号車から5号車、自由席は後より1号車から5号車です。お近くの号車番号、車内の表示を確認。
And Tsubame, I want to say it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Tokyo Station. And it's a beautiful ride. Like, it's weird sitting here watching this right now. It just kind of puts me back to like in Japan. So I've arrived at Tsubame Station. Now, this is like 498 yen, something like that. Or maybe 538 yen with tax. I don't know if I'm reading that right. Definitely in the US, you cannot get this sort of quality meal for $3 to $4 at all. At the time I was traveling, US dollar was 140 yen or so. The exchange rate was very favorable for the American dollar. I want to say there's like 6 or 8 skewers there. for something like $4. Alright, so this is Hinoura's headquarters. And it took me a couple seconds to come up with the right words because it's the knife making headquarters, but also I believe they live on one side of the house or the other side of the house. And they're also building a property right next, like a house on the property next door. So that's why I had to kind of figure out like, how do I frame this? But this is where they live and work. And this is very typical of businesses in Japan. Okay, you're okay. This is Hinoura-san's wife, I believe, making us coffee. You guys notice Demon Slayer right there on the counter? Yeah, you know you can make knives when you've got Demon Slayer as your inspiration to look at every day. The knives that they have are really cool. They'll show us the showcase, the kind of the showroom area. Then they'll go to some of the history of the company.
なし地、磨き、鍛え地、この頭は5種類しかない。けども絵が100種類あって。
Now, if you look on the wall, the very first Hinoura started knife making in 1905. I believe they started even before that as tool makers. And if you watch my video of traveling to Japan back in 2019, we actually get another tour, and the studio looks very different back then. They had, I don't know if they still have it, and I'll see here, but they had like axes and tools from way back from the first generation of tool makers, which is so cool.
だったら、結局これに組み合わせていったら、約500種類。
そういうことですよね。めちゃめちゃ。
になるんで、今のところ多分栗の絵にこういう風に入れていったら必ずどっかでバッティングしちゃう。けども、こういう風に小豚みたいなやつとか入れていけば、多分自分ちのオリジナル。
The reason why I'm posting this video as is to show you like what I go through when I'm traveling through Japan. It's not like I have a perfect translator that's translating every single word. Half the time I don't know what's going on.
一個もんののもできるし、ちょっと今写真見せますけど。
Now all these knives here we actually carry on Burrfection store. So if you want to go see them, check them out, do some reading up on them, go to burrfectionstore.com, or I'll post a link to the Hinoura site. Hinoura-san, Hinoura knives have always been known for their chestnut handles. This is what you see on the last few. And they're going to show me some of their newer handles that they will be putting on their newer blades.
おー、いいですね。
いろいろあって、今ちょっとプリントアウト、これもそうですけど、結局、こういう感じでいろんな種類があると。で、入れるものによって全然、雰囲気も変わっちゃうんで。
Alright, so if you look at this handle right now, there is absolutely zero step between the ferrule and the rest of the handle body. Very well done. Most of the time when you buy octagonal handles, if you can tell how well they're finished just by running your fingers or your finger up and down between the ferrule and the handle body. And if there's a step, it just means that that's not indicative of a poor quality handle. It just means that the finishing is not as good as it could be. These are immaculate. This is a beautiful handle. I forgot what the material is, but it's got this gorgeous like amber sheen. And there's a silver colored copper divider.
半分樹脂。
なんて言ったらいいかな。割ったところに樹脂入れ込んでくっつけてある。海外はこれはアメリカ持ってニューヨーク8月行きましたけど、こういうタイプ、これも樹脂入れ込んであるんですけど、ちょうどなんていうんですかね、巣のところに全部。
Yeah, so they have this really cool poster. They have like a number of these posters Some of them are like 8 feet wide. Not posters, boards. Boards, art boards that show a lot of what the company, what the history of the company is. The profile of their knives are also really cool. They're not, I would call them more of what I like as a profile. They're a bit more lean of a profile. They're not like your typical gyotos that a lot of Japanese makers have. You'll see that the spine of the knife actually come down forward a bit more aggressively and earlier. A lot of Japanese knife makers have their spine go straight across all the way to close to like within a couple of inches of the tip, and then it comes down. Their knives are a bit more tapered, starting from I would say the 1/3 mark towards the tip. And so it gives the knife a bit more sleek look. And their knives are very rustic. If you look at all their knives, it gives you just that sense of that rustic heritage. They do have the higher polished knives, but a lot of their knives have this sort of oxidized look to them. Yeah, so Nishiji is what we're looking at here. It's essentially one of the most rawest looking. You'll see the hammer marks, you'll see the burnt marks, you'll see the flaking of the impurities off the blades. Really cool look. I love this style.
一個一個打たないといけない。
プレスでバンっていうわけじゃないですもんね。いや、かっこいいわ。
You guys see that? The photographer, Yoichi Ayabe, he's a photographer. I love like how the Japanese calling cards and Japanese taste in art is very different than what I'm used to. And I love how he's got his photo as like this black and white drawing. It's real cute.
100年続いたっていうまあここに書いてあるんですけど。
On the far right, you're looking at Mutsumi Hinoura, and the gentleman right next to him is his father, and that's Tsukasa-san.
あれってもう終わったプロジェクトではあるんだ。
終わったプロジェクト。あれ。
And if you haven't noticed, Mutsumi has got the absolute coolest graying like I've ever seen. I met him, I guess it'd be 4 years ago at the time of this visit, and his head was already like all like gray peppered. He's got this super cool look where he's young looking in the face, but he's got this gray head. Kind of envious of that. Now this is one of the most beautiful knives you will ever lay your eyes on. And I think you can see it from the video. The Damascus that he has, you can see, if you look closely enough, you can see that the Damascus on the left side, the cladding on the left side, doesn't match the right side. You know, I see Damascus knives all the time. It's not only beautiful, but it's hefty. It's not a light knife. Now, why is this knife on the bottom so special? The knife on top is beautiful. It is absolutely the knife that you should buy. But here's the thing, the knife on top you can actually buy. The knife on the bottom is made with Tamahagane, and you cannot buy this knife. And he gave us a backstory of how this knife got created and why it's, well, there's a reason why it's so expensive. Because it is Tamahagane, but there's a whole hierarchy of, there's a whole chain that you have to go through in order to buy the Tamahagane and then be able to sell a knife or sword made with Tamahagane. If I can recall this correctly, there is a Tamahagane dealer that he's able to get Tamahagane, and he will give Tamahagane, I believe free of charge, to a knife maker or sword maker. And then the knife maker has to basically make the knife or a couple of knives with the exact weight or pretty much approximate to what the raw ore weighed. And so you can't like make a knife and then sell something else with Tamahagane. They basically keep track of every ounce of Tamahagane that is made and that is distributed somewhere. And then I believe the distributor, this Tamahagane middle person, he has the right to buy that knife for $2,000, $3,000, and then he can go and sell that same knife for $4,000 to $5,000. So the knife on top has a retail price of roughly $2,500 to $2,600 if you can find it in stock, which you almost never will, unless you have it on special order. And the waiting list on that knife on top is about 2 to 3 years. The knife on the bottom, I offered to buy the knife. Very politely, I asked if it's possible for him to sell the knife. And I said, if there's a price that we can pay, how much? He says, well, if you can buy this knife, it'll be about $5,000 for that one knife. But he says, I cannot even sell that knife to you because he says, I have to account for this knife. It's crazy. It is, oh man, it's absolutely crazy that even the knife maker himself cannot sell a knife that he made. How do he explain it? He actually is one of 3 metal experts that work or consult for the universities in Japan when it comes to metallurgy and steel. And the other 2 steel experts, metallurgy experts, are not knife makers. They're actually like PhD people. They're scientists. So he is the only non-scientist knife maker in Japan that consults at the university level. So really high level understanding of steel and metallurgy. And this is what he made essentially this is what he used to make that very special knife. And what I'm holding here, it's about 3 pounds or so, maybe 4 pounds. It's very heavy, very dense, way heavier than you would think. But just a beautiful, like a really beautiful block of steel.
台を研ぎ台もちゃんと
研ぎ台もちゃんと。いやー、
こうやって
So that music you hear in the background is actually not my music. I didn't input music into I didn't put a music track into the video. It's Tsukasa-san's. When he walks through the studio, the first thing he does is turn on his amp for his music, and then he plays a track. This time it's acoustic guitar, and it's really soothing. And this is what he lives for. Tsukasa-san, besides knife making, if he had the choice to be a knife maker or a musician, I think he probably would have chosen to be a musician. But he's an amazing knife maker. Music is, I would say, probably his first love.
滋賀県の人で送ってきたんですよ。
Alright, you remember that knife, the Sakura knife in the case where it says Sakura on it and it's the hunting series? This knife was made 30 years ago, and it's amazing. I don't know if you noticed this, but when he held the knife and he looked at it, you can see there's a love in his eyes for that knife. And again, I couldn't hear all of the backstory to that knife, but I did manage to get that part. And it's got the same handle that is still being used on the current knives in the Sakura lineup.
結構ね。
So this is his amp, which has got tubes in it. And this is what he plays all day in the studio. When he's in the studio talking and working, he's got this playing in the background. So these are the microscopes he used to analyze steel and raw ore.
でも嬉しいよね。
嬉しいですよね。
30年前のやつ送ってきてまだ使って。
That laugh, that laugh the chuckle that he just had. He looks over and I do one of these. It was just so special to hold that knife. And right now he's reaching into a container, and this is where he stores his knives. I think this is like his very special collection of knives that he keeps in anti-corrosion water.
すごい。
Wow, yeah.
それでかいポスター。
はいはいはいはいは
で、あっこに文字が入ってたんだけど、文字抜いてくれるって、抜けるって言って抜けるからってことで、印刷会社ですよね。
The entire structure of the knife is a solid piece of Damascus, and he made the Damascus steel.
まあ僕が死んだらもうこんなもん。
I asked him how long he'll make knives for. Because I think there was a moment where he was like, "Hey, I'm making fewer knives these days, and the waiting list is getting longer and longer." So I asked him, "How long will he make knives for?" And he chuckled a little bit. He says, "Until he leaves, basically until he dies." And it's a sad thought for me to hear that.
Until he leaves.
Until?
Until he
Oh, until he's gone.
Yeah.
Until he's finished. Until he retire. Retire. How long is the waiting list for this one?
まあどのぐらい待つ必要がありますかと、これをもしオーダーしたら。
できれば、まあ、作ればすぐ、まあ、1ヶ月2ヶ月でできるかもしれないけど、他のやつがみんな待ってってもらってるんで、できれば1年ぐらい。
1 year.
Now, 1 year is not that bad for that knife. So if any of you guys want that knife and you're willing to wait a year for it, hit me up in the comments. Let me know. Or go to burrfectionstore.com and go to the Hinouras site, which I'll link in the video description. Get on the waiting list and let me know, because I want to buy maybe a dozen of those knives. And yeah, I would love to keep a dozen of those knives as well.
ミラノのさ、おそらくヨーロッパではナンバーワンですよ。ロレンチっていう。
So this is the knife and fork combo that won him. I believe this is basically what gave him his name. The world knew who Hinoura-san was after that blade and fork set.
一時期やめたんですけど、今その。
This is his whetstone collection. You can see basically he has a lot of what I have, or I have a lot of what he has. On the far left there, you can see a lot of Suhiros. On the left, you have all the Syrax. So essentially, he's got like 20 Suhiros on the left side. On the right side, he's got the Shaptons. He's got the Kitayama 8000, which is my top pick for an 8000 grit stone. He's got a bunch of naturals. And then on the shelf, which I don't know, we'll see later, he's got a bunch of Naniwas.
一枚も折り返してつけて。
じゃあうわ重たいわ。
And this is the steel that he makes for his knives. He's talking about folding them, but yeah, it's amazing. He can take that block of steel right there that's very raw and unfinished to what we saw earlier.
硬いは硬いんですか？
硬いんじゃないんだって。
硬いんじゃないですね。
硬いって叩くとさ、ピーンピーンピーンとするけど、冷えりゃ硬くなるんだけど、僕らほら赤く熱するわけで、まあこれなんかもうほぼ鉄だったら溶けるさ、1200前後の、まだ赤めても伸びない。
Did anyone get that? If you speak Japanese, please let me know what he said. Alright, so this is the new studio that he just finished, I think, during the pandemic. When I first visited their headquarters back in 2019, none of this existed. It was just a big empty room. I want to say all white walls, and there were like, I want to say there was a case that had some of the old farming tools that they made back generations ago, over 100 years ago. If I have any woodworkers watching, and you want to help me build a case, a high quality case like this, please hit me up in the comments, or send me an email, ricky@burrfection.com. I want to talk to you. I need to build something like this. And if I have any furniture makers watching this video, please hit me up in the comments as well. The chairs and the table, they're a matching set, and they are just, oh man, they're so comfortable and they're beautiful. Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing. The room is plain. You can see there's not much on the walls, but it felt very warm. I think the lighting that they use, that really beautiful lighting, I think helped a lot. Even though the walls are white, it's a very warm feeling room. And then you have the wood, the warmthness of the wood and the window frame here, and the table and the chairs. It just made it feel like a very warm, welcoming room. We went to a local sushi joint. Prices of sushi in Japan is so cheap you will not believe it. And I'm not gonna tell you what it is yet. I'm just gonna show you what it is. All right, look real closely. You can see seared prawn seared with pepper mayo, $1.30 yen. I'm sorry, it's 130 yen, so less than a dollar. Arrow squid. Okay, so 2 pieces of raw squid for 110 yen, 80 cents or something like that. It's some incredible number. What is it? Squid with wasabi. 110 yen. I mean, this was the entire menu. Whether you went tuna, salmon, some of the, I want to say some of the, like the shellfish may have been a little bit higher, but basically you're looking at 50 cents to 60 cents per bite. If you go to the States, any average restaurant, any average sushi restaurant, 2 pieces of squid will cost you about $7 at least. 2 pieces of prawn seared will cost you $8 to $9. Yeah, that's the difference of price when it comes to eating in Japan. This is average, like this is the average price for sushi in Japan. It's incredible. My goal with this format is to show you as much as I can of what it's actually like for me when I go visit a knife maker or a knife factory. There's so much to see, and this is only the beginning of this trip. You'll see that some of my other knife factory visits are much longer and much more involved, and I think they were just short on time, so we couldn't do like a sharpening demo like what we did last time I visited in 2019. But I want to hear your thoughts on this format. You know, do you like this format? For me, it's much more authentic and much more real, and it really helps me put together all my thoughts on my trip, as opposed to trying to dwindle, you know, an entire day's visit down to 5 or 10 minutes. I think that's just ridiculous. And I really want to get away from that kind of chasing YouTube's algorithm and trying to make things short. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go with the longest video possible, within reason. And I really just want to show you what it's like to travel when I travel. And you know, I think it paints a much more honest picture of what it looks like with me when I travel. I don't stay in fancy hotels. I don't eat super fancy food. My focus when I travel to Japan is really just on the artisans, and that's it. Yeah, so I definitely want to hear your comments. Let me know what I could do better, and what you like, what you didn't like. I will definitely read your comments, and I will do my best to make the next video better. And yeah, so I am back now. It is now May. I've just moved into a new home, and my family and I we're happy here. I'm just exhausted between getting the house moved and then now getting my studio set up. That's why I'm in this really echoey room. I don't have any sound dampening materials up yet. I'm working on that. So bear with me as I get my studio set up, and I'll give you guys a proper tour at some point. But I want to say thank you for all of those who are still watching this video, and yeah, I'm back, and it's gonna be fun. And yeah, I'll give you guys an update on the channel and give you guys an update on future travels. The channel is changing a little bit. for the better, I believe. And there's going to be a lot more exciting things than just me sharpening knives in my garage in my kitchen. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay.